citruscycles.ca. This is Wallerang's M.02X, and the O2 tells you that this is the step-through frame. It's also available in O1, which is a regular frame, and that comes in 2 sizes. And the X tells you that this has a really nice front suspension fork. All of the Wallerang bikes are made by hand in Sweden, which is very exciting, and it features the Shimano steps mid-drive. And one of the really unique features about this bike is it also has a Shimano internally geared hub. It's 8 speeds, and it has an automatic mode where it'll automatically shift for you. So there's some really neat things about this bike. I'm going to talk a little bit about who it's for. I'll take you through all the features of the bike, and then I'll take you for a ride test. Now, if you want to find out more details on this bike or any of the other e-bikes we carry, you can head over to citruscycles.ca. You'll find current pricing, all of the specs on the bike. You can also contact us from there to book an appointment to come try it here in Ladysmith on Vancouver Island. Or if you want to try it at your home, anywhere on Vancouver Island or the Lower Mainland, you can contact us and we'd be happy to bring it to you to try it out. You can also, of course, have us ship it to you anywhere in Canada if you're not able to make it here and try it. So let me grab the camera and step you through some of the really neat features of this bike. Okay, so before I go through the features, you may be wondering, who is this bike for? Well, if you're looking for a very accessible bike for commuting, some light trail riding, this is a great bike. I'm going to show you in a few minutes the auto shifting, but it also has electronic shifting. And because it's an internally geared hub, you can actually shift while the bike is stopped. So if you find it difficult to shift with thumb shifters or with a twist shift, maybe you have arthritis or difficulty with the full range of motion with your hands or wrists, this is a really good bike to consider. Even if you don't want to use the automatic mode, which you may want to, it's fantastic. You can use the buttons here, and it doesn't require any force at all. They're electronic buttons that you just press, and it automatically shifts. I don't know if you can hear it while I press the button. You can hear the little bit of a motor there as it shifts electronically for you. And on the display here, it actually shows you the gear that you're in. It also shows me right now that I'm in auto, but I can override that at any time. So if you're looking for a really accessible bike in terms of easy to get on and off, in terms of not even having to shift, or if you do need to shift, being able to do so very easily, this is a great bike to consider. It's also a really good bike if you need to haul a lot of stuff, but you don't really want a cargo bike. The nice thing is that these racks are actually modular, so the rear rack you can put up to 25 kilos on, and there's 4 bolts here that hold the rack onto the frame. So you can remove the rack. They call this bike a modular bike because you could, if you don't need to use the rack, you could take it off with those 4 bolts there and just ride it like a regular bike. But having the rack on is nice because you can put a lot of weight on there, and there's also a front rack. What's unique and innovative about this rack is it actually is bolted on, again with 4 of these bolts here, to the head tube. So that means when I turn the wheel, you can see I'm turning the wheel right now, the rack doesn't move with it. It stays on the frame of the bike. That takes a little while getting used to when you're riding, because as you can see, if I'm riding up here and I turn my wheel and the rack doesn't turn, it can be a little bit confusing at first. You'll quickly get used to it, and you'll quickly come to appreciate that that really helps your ride to be very stable. So normally, if you wanted to put a lot of weight on a bike, I'd suggest a cargo bike, not just in terms of the space that's available, but also for stability. But with this bike, because you've got the rack built into the head tube here, it does actually help with stability. So normally, if the rack were to turn when you turn the wheel, that's affecting your steering. Obviously, it's putting a lot more weight on the front of the bike, and it's really going to have an impact on your steering, your maneuverability. And of course, as well, you're going to find that the rack's going to tilt, and you have to make sure that you've got stuff secure on the front. With this, your rack is always going to be with the frame of the bike, and so you don't have to worry about that. And keeping on that theme of being modular, Wallerang also has this optional front rack here that you can put on, and it actually bolts on and gives you a lot more storage there. And they tell me that they're coming out with some other accessories as well. So that modular idea definitely has some appeal, but the standout feature to me is that internally geared hub allowing you to shift while you're stopped, and not even having to worry about shifting because it's automatic, and I'll show that to you in a moment. So let me talk about the rest of the features of the bike, and then I'll get into the Shimano step system and the automatic shifting. Like I said, this is the X, which tells you it has a front suspension fork. If you want to save $300, you can get it with a rigid fork. The $300 is well worth it in my opinion. This is actually a serious air fork. This is the RockShox Recon. It's got 80 millimeters of travel. This is something, you know, that you can put on a mountain bike. So it's a really nice, very comfortable fork. We do have compression settings on the front here that we can adjust. And because it is an air fork, you can actually adjust the air setting depending on your weight. And that is something that you can find on the RockShox website as far as how much air you should use based on your weight. But of course you can also just try it and see what feels best to you. There's also a rebound adjustment on the bottom here. So that's a really neat upgrade that you can do. And yet, despite having the burlier air forks, they still managed to put some really nice SKS fenders on here, both the front and the rear. And also to help with protection, we've got a full-length chain guard here as well, and it actually goes all the way around the chain, which is really nice, around the crank on the front. And just the little attention to detail and the quality components they're using. We've got some Wellgo platform pedals here with some nubs here, kind of to help with traction when you're riding in the rain, so that's nice to see. And as far as visibility goes, it's a nice looking bike. I mean, you can tell by the paint job, the frame, it's just really well put together. That white makes it really visible and makes sure that you're seen. And to help with that, on these Schwalbe Big Ben tires, we do have a reflective strip as well. We also have built-in lights, and those run off of the main battery. And I love that because a lot of times, you know, I'm forgetting to bring my lights along, or bring them along and they're not charged, or I forget to take them off when I get where I'm going and I'm worried about them being stolen. It's nice to have those integrated and running off of the main system. And it's really easy to turn your lights on and off. There's just a light button, a dedicated light button here, which again is nice. You don't have to worry, okay, now what button do I press and hold to activate the lights? There's a button there and makes it really easy to activate that. Head back to the tires. I did mention these were Schwalbe Big Ben. So they're balloon tires. And a balloon tire, it basically means it has a high volume of air in it, and you can get the pressure low so that it can be really comfortable. It can help smooth out the bumps. In fact, Schwalbe did an interesting study that they posted on their website showing that in a lot of cases for urban riding, balloon tire gives you as much shock absorption as a typical coil suspension fork. So you may think, you know, that the upgrade to the air fork isn't necessary. It really depends on the type of riding you're doing. If you end up, you know, taking a lot of curbs and you know, doing trails where there's going to be some rocks and roots and stuff, that'll really help. But if you decide to save the money, these Schwalbe Big Ben tires are going to help smooth out the ride if you don't have that suspension fork. So we've got a nice comfortable saddle on the top here as well, and fairly comfortable grips. We've got, they are, don't see a brand on them, but they are quite comfortable. I've quite enjoyed them. And just along the lines of comfort as well, these Shimano hydraulic disc brakes do have adjustable reach without a tool, so that's nice that you can adjust that. And of course, I always look for things like that. Having the hydraulic disc brakes is really nice. Makes it really easy to stop the bike when you get up to speeds. And especially, you know, e-bikes are heavier because of the motor and the battery. And if you're loading up the racks, then you really want that confidence that you're going to be able to stop when you need to. And certainly you can do that with this bike. They even include a nice little mini bell. Fairly high pitch, should get people's attention. So all in all, some really great attention to detail. We even have bosses here that you could use for a water bottle or a mini pump or something like that. So as I mentioned, this is using the Shimano step system. You can see it's integrated into the bottom bracket here. So it is a mid-drive. I love using a mid-drive because it helps keep the weight centered lower down and in the middle of the bike, making it very stable, very manageable, It just rides and feels like a bike. The other nice thing about a mid-drive is that you are then leveraging your gears. So in this case, it's an internally geared hub. It's got 8 speeds. And when you change to an easier gear, because the motor is turning your chain, then that's like using the transmission in your vehicle. It's actually going to affect the motor and help you climb hills more easily. And so that's a nice feature about the mid-drive. We've got the Shimano Steps battery here. I believe it's a 400 watt-hour battery. The neat thing about the Shimano battery is it can slide off of the side here, so that allows them to put it in a small space like this. You can charge it on the bike if you wish. The charger comes with a small plug that plugs into here. If you take the battery off of the bike by unlocking it here and charging it inside, unfortunately you will need a dongle that comes with the charger that basically takes this little tiny plug and makes it into a bigger plug that goes into the bottom of the battery. So just make sure that you always keep that dongle with the charger if you are planning on charging your battery off the bike or somewhere safe, because you don't want to lose it, you don't want to misplace it, otherwise you'll only be able to charge the battery on the bike. So I'm not a huge fan of having a dongle, but I understand why they've done that, so that you can charge it both on and off the bike. Let's take a look up here at the Shimano Steps display. Really easy to read. I should point that out right away. It's a really bright sunny day here, and it's super easy to read. Nice big display at the top here. You can see we've got a lot of information on the screen at once that you don't have to cycle through. So you can see the time, you can see if you've got your light on, you can see your battery, and this is really cool because you can actually see the battery percentage, and that's really handy. Your current speed, the current level of assist, and to choose the level of assist, that's on the left here. So the up and down here changes it. So if I go up, you can see now it's on eco, up again it's on normal, and there are only 3 modes of assistance on the Shimano system, high being the third level of assist. We also right now are in the auto mode, so that means as I pedal it's going to automatically shift for me, and in the ride test you'll see how well that works. I was a little reluctant at first to consider that because I've been riding bikes for so many years, and even e-bikes for quite a few years now, that I wasn't sure if I would feel comfortable, handing over the responsibility of choosing gears to the bike. And I gotta say, it did a really good job of it. I'm really impressed with how well it handles the automatic shifting. And so one of the things it does is when you stop, it automatically downshifts to 3. You can adjust that if you wish to have it to downshift lower or higher. It's nice that you can make that change. And then as you start pedaling and as you start picking up speed, it'll start shifting into higher and higher gears. If you start climbing a hill, it'll start going into lower gears. So it's really clever the way that it does that. And because it's an internally geared hub, it can shift while you're stopped. One of the interesting things is that when you're shifting an internally geared hub, you do need to let off a little bit on the pedals. So the Shimano Steps motor automatically does that. When it's shifting, you'll hear it briefly cut out so that it can achieve that shift, and then it'll kick in back in. It is a fairly quiet, as you'll notice in the ride test, and let me go back to the display here. We also have the current distance down here, and when I press the top button over here, it cycles through. We've got an odometer, we've got the range calculator that's really handy to have, telling you about how much range you have left based on the battery that you have left, and it'll actually show you for each of the modes what the range is, so that can help you if you know you've got a certain distance that you need to hit to be able to make it home. That'll help you choose the best level of assistance in order to be able to achieve that. Current riding time is available, your average speed is available, along with your maximum speed. All of that can be reset, and to access the menu to reset things, you press and hold the button at the top here. It's actually really very easy to work through, and that's going to allow you then to reset anything that you need to. You can also press and hold both the up and down button here, I believe, to get into the menu, and from the menu you can clear all settings, you can adjust your clock, you can change the gear that it starts out in, you can change your backlight, you can change the brightness. First thing I did was I turned the beeping on and off. If you leave that on, when you shift over here on the right, or choose any of the menu options on the left here, it's going to beep at you. I found that pretty annoying, so I turned that off. You can change your units from metric to imperial, change your language. You can even change the font color, and that's pretty cool as well. So I'm just going to exit that now. So I've alluded to a few times how the shifting system works. It is electronic. Right now you can see I'm in auto, and if I press the button here, now you can see it changes to manual. Now in manual mode, I can just press the up and down to adjust to whatever gear that I wish to. The little box there, the little box there is telling me that 3 is where it's going to go to when I stop. But right now I'm at 8, and you can hear it as I press that little motor adjusting it. Now if I'm in auto mode and I choose to override it, I can do that, but after a little while, because I'm still in auto, it'll go back to wherever it thinks that I should be riding in. So you can see, really super easy to use, very little force is required. So if you do have issues with a regular shifter, paddle shifter, or twist shifter, and it's just really hard with your hands, then that's a really nice feature. So for example, my mother has arthritis in her hands. This would be an ideal bike for her, not only because of the electronic shifting. I can tell you she'll never use that. She's the type of person that would love this automatic mode where you just put it and it just shifts for you and makes it really easy. And that's nice, especially if you're commuting or you're riding in an unfamiliar area where really you just want to ride and enjoy your bike. The bike does the shifting for you, and with the assistance you're able to hit the hills with no problem. You're able to go longer distances and just really enjoy riding more. And that's one of the things that we really find happens with e-bikes. A lot of our customers come back to us and say, wow, I never knew how much I would love riding my bike. And they start riding it in all weather, even in the rain, even in the wind, because with that assistance from the e-bike, they really find that it helps them to overcome all the excuses, all the barriers that prevent us from riding. And so you'll find that instead of taking your vehicle, you'll start taking your bike. And with a bike like this, the fact that you can throw a couple pannier bags on the back here, put a trunk bag on the front, put some more cargo up here, you really can haul a lot with you. You could even put child seats on the back as well. There's some really neat child seats that are really safe and easy to use. And so you really can start using the bike as a primary means of transportation. So this is the Wallerang. This is the M.02X. Like I said, the M.01 is also available, which is a high step. It's available in 2 sizes, and you can choose to have the front suspension fork or not. It's made in Sweden. I'm really pleased with the attention to detail and the quality control on it. I'm going to take you for a little ride test. But if you have questions about this or any other e-bike, you're not sure what e-bike is best for your needs, I'm happy to help you out with that. Head over to our website at citruscycles.ca. So I'm going to start out with it on the auto. There's a button right here that changes it from auto to manual. When you're in manual, of course, then you can adjust the gears manually by using the up and down buttons here. It's all electronics, so it's really very easy to use, especially if you have a hard time with your hands. Maybe you have arthritis or something like that. It makes it really easy to shift. And of course, being in the auto mode, you don't even have to worry about shifting at all. So I'll start out on the auto and we'll do some hills and give it a try. And right now I have the assist off. I do like to do that sometimes on bikes just to see how well they ride as a regular bike. And well, there it was automatically shifting, and you can see the numbers here are changing as it tells you that it's shifting. And it's actually pretty easy to get this bike up. I'm doing 20 right now without assistance, and really easy to pedal. So now let me turn the assistance on. There's 3 levels of assistance, and if I press the plus button here, you can see now I'm on eco. I'll press it again and I'm on normal. If I wanted a lot of power, I could go to high on, what was that high one called there? High. All right, now let me point out another interesting thing about this bike now that I've got the assistance on. And again, you can hear it automatically shifting. It is an internally geared hub, and that's great because it means you can shift at a standstill. So you'll notice if I stop right now, it's automatically shifted me down to 3, so that when I start pedaling, it's really easy to pedal. It's not super hard to pedal because it's shifted to the right gear. Now what I wanted to show you, I keep going around this cul-de-sac here, is the rack doesn't turn with the wheel. It takes a little bit of getting used to that because your rack is going forward and your wheel is turning. See that? Now that actually, although it's weird to look at, The advantage of that is that if you have stuff on here, for example, my daughter says she's going to get the optional basket and she's going to someday get a fluffy white dog and ride with it up in the front there. And so the dog will appreciate the fact that when she turns, the whole front basket doesn't move with the wheel and tilt and the dog would fall off. Perhaps you aren't going with the dog, perhaps you've got other things that you're going to put up there, but it does keep it more stable. As well, it's not going to impact the handling. So if you've got a whole bunch of weight here and you turn the wheel and it goes with the wheel, that's really going to move the weight distribution of your bike around. By having the rack on the front here not moving, it really helps with that. Okay, I'm going to head up a hill here. And I'm just going to try it in normal. Lots of power in normal, no problem. Let's try it now in high. Yeah, definitely more power there. You can hear the motor, but it's not overly loud. It's a lower pitch hum than the Bosch motor. It's almost more of a, almost kind of a grinding sound. I'm not sure how to describe it. Not necessarily grinding, but it's definitely a lower pitch. But, you know, for the most part, you're really not going to notice it. And that's on high. If I bring it back down to normal, slightly quieter. Eco. A little bit quieter, and you can see there it needed to shift. Go back up to high. One of the interesting things you'll notice when it's shifting is it does cut power to the motor, and that's really important. In an internally geared hub, you'll often find that it won't actually shift. If I put it into manual mode and I'm applying a lot of force on the pedals, it's not going to be able to shift. You really have to ease off the support on the pedals, the tension on the pedals, the force, in order for it to shift. So this bike, when it automatically shifts, let's see if I really push it there and get it to shift, then it will back off and allow you to shift. Now, going from 7 to 8, I had to back off a little bit on the pedals myself. Now, it's not going to be using 8 very often unless you're really hammering it. Right now, there, it did it without me having to back off on the pedals. That was up to the 32. Let's try a hill here. You can see it's shifting based on the speed. So if I start pedaling down this hill, it's already shifted into 8 for me. Now, I think that with the 8 speeds, anything above 40, 45 kilometers an hour, your legs are going to be moving pretty quickly to keep up. So now I'm curious, you know, this is a relatively long hill, not too steep. I'll see if I can find a steeper hill. How is it going to handle shifting going up the hill for me? And it's doing it really well. It's taking care of that all for me. And there you could hear it's having a tough time because I'm continuing to pedal. So with that auto shifting, you know, if you were shifting yourself, you would probably just naturally ease off on the pedaling just momentarily for it to do that. But of course, if you're under high load like that hill and you don't ease off, then you hear that clicking, and that's just a reminder to just momentarily, very momentarily, ease off on the pedaling, and then it's shifted. I'll do that again on this hill. So it doesn't take long to get used to. Hydraulic disc brakes here with lots of modulation, makes it really easy to stop. Heading down that hill, I was hitting about 48 at one point, and I was still able to pedal. So it does have a good gear ratio, and of course it gives me everything I need for getting up the hill, especially on this high mode right now. So as I climb the hill, it's going to downshift for me, and at some point it's going to be a lot easier if I momentarily stop pedaling like that, and then as soon as I momentarily stop pedaling, it can shift down to that first gear. Shifting up doesn't seem to be as much of a problem. I just kept applying full force and it was able to do it for me. All right, I'll put it back down to normal. Obviously high is going to use quite a bit more of your battery. One of the things I do like is that we do have a battery percentage here. So you can see I have used 4% of my battery by doing it on high and going up and down all these hills. You can see I've now got a range calculator down there and a bunch of trip stats as well. Really liking the front suspension fork here. You can lock it out and open it up. So got lots of travel here when it's fully open. If I'm doing curves like that, no problem. And a little bit of rattle with the fender there, which isn't unusual going over curves. The rest of the time, the bike is perfectly quiet. These racks, you never hear them. That's the neat thing about these racks. They're modular, you can remove them, but they're really well built, kind of integrated into the frame, super strong. Okay, I'm gonna head back. Let me switch off the auto, and that's really easy to do. On the right here, this top button, turn that and you can see now it says manual. So now I actually have to keep in mind that I have to manually shift. When you're shifting, if at all possible, you want to ease off a little bit on the pedals, take the pressure off. So I'm coasting right now. If I were to start pedaling now, I'd probably want it my highest gear, so I just press the plus here. You can see it's in 7. Now it's an 8. When I pedal, it's a good gear for me to be in. But it's really interesting. I've ridden bikes for years, e-bikes for years. I'm really used to choosing my own gears, of course. And I was concerned. I thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this automatic thing, because I really want to be in charge of the gears myself. What if the bike chooses the wrong gear? I've been really surprised, actually, at how well it works. Okay, so now I'm out of auto. I have to remember, I'm slowing down here, and I'm still at 8. That's going to be a little bit tough, because I've got to go back up the hill. So I'm going to have to press the minus here. And you can see I can, or press the down arrow here, you can see I can adjust multiple gears at once as well. Unlike a traditional derailleur, I can press that a couple times and go down until one of my easier gears for climbing here. And here you can hear the whine of the motor now as I'm climbing up the hill, but most of the time you really don't notice it. And of course I'm on normal, boost up to high. And if I really hammer on the pedals there, I get a lot of power. It's one of the neat things about the Shimano step system and a lot of mid-drives is they do have torque sensors. So the harder you pedal, the more power it's going to give you. And the less you pedal, the less power it's going to give you. And that's really important if you're navigating difficult sections of a trail and you don't want too much power. Generally don't recommend bikes that only have cadence sensors or speed sensors that don't have torque sensors, because it can be quite dangerous. They can give you power when you aren't expecting it. Whereas with this bike, you're only going to get the power that you need and that you request. So if I pedal harder here, I get more force. I'm down in eco. Put it back up to normal. And I think I'm going to put it back onto auto. I actually really like that auto. And you can see it automatically just shifted there for me. So if you're looking for a bike that is really easy to ride, that is going to allow you to just focus on the road or on the trail, or just get out and have a good time without necessarily thinking about being in the right gear or remembering to downshift, this is a great bike, very comfortable. Lots of quality components, so really good brakes, lots of modulation, nice rack and fenders, get a full coverage chain guard there. It's really a great bike, lots of fun. quite enjoying it. So for more details on this or any other bikes, if you want to try it out yourself, just head on over to citruscycles.ca.